Have you ever wondered, just for a moment, what if the exhaustion you feel every morning is not a sign that you need to push harder, but a sign that you have been running the wrong race entirely? You wake up tired before the day even begins. Not physically tired, deeper than that. The kind of tired that lives in your chest. The kind that follows you into the shower, into the car, into the office, and is still there when you come home. I know this because I've spoken to hundreds of people who described it to me in almost exactly those words. The weight in the chest, the invisible ceiling, the same math that never adds up. You've done everything right. You pray. You tithe. You serve. You show up on Sunday when others stay home. You believe, genuinely, deeply believe. And yet, the bills don't stop. The salary disappears before the month ends. You've done the math 100 times and it never adds up. There's always something. A car repair, a medical bill, an unexpected expense that wipes out whatever small progress you made. You look at your children and something tightens in your chest. What are you leaving them? What is being built right now that they can inherit? The honest answer terrifies you. You've prayed for breakthrough. You've fasted. You've declared scriptures over your finances in faith. And still the ceiling hasn't moved. Here is what nobody will say to your face. You have been faithful to God, and your bank account does not reflect that faithfulness. That contradiction is real. It is painful, and you are not imagining it. But the reason is not what you think. This is not your fault. You were never given the map. You were taught to pray for provision. You were never taught to build it. You were taught to trust God with your finances. You were never shown what God actually wrote about finances, in detail, in practical terms, in language that was always meant to be applied, not just admired. The Bible is not just a spiritual document. It is the oldest wealth strategy ever written. And the principles buried inside it were not written for theologians or pastors. They were written for ordinary people, in ordinary circumstances, who needed a path out. These are universal principles, patterns of stewardship, knowledge, multiplication, relationship, and excellence that have governed economic outcomes throughout all of human history. They are grounded in Scripture, and they work because they reflect how human flourishing actually operates. Deuteronomy 8:18 says it plainly. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant. Read that again. God gives you the ability to produce wealth, not the wealth itself, handed down from the sky. The ability, the capacity, the mechanism, the strategy. That ability is already inside you. The map to activate it has been in your Bible the whole time. Today, you are going to see it for the first time. His name was Joseph, and the day his brothers sold him for 20 pieces of silver, everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. He was 17 years old. He had a father who loved him, a coat that set him apart, and dreams that made people uncomfortable. That was all he had. And it was all taken from him in a single afternoon on a road to Dothan. He did not arrive in Egypt as a scholar, a businessman, or a man of standing. He arrived in chains. He was sold to a man named Potiphar as property, not as an employee, as property. And then, he was falsely accused, thrown into prison without a trial, without an appeal, without anyone to speak for him. Years passed. You would think this was the end of the story. Most people's faith would have collapsed under the weight of that combination. Betrayed by family, enslaved, imprisoned, forgotten. But something was happening inside that prison that nobody could see. Joseph was learning how systems work, how supply chains function, how resources are organized, how leadership operates even inside broken structures. He was not waiting for rescue. He was developing the 7 principles that would one day shape the economy of the most powerful nation on earth. When Pharaoh pulled him from that cell, Joseph did not walk out as a freed slave. He walked out as the economic architect of Egypt. He designed a 7-year wealth accumulation strategy followed by a 7-year distribution system that kept an entire civilization alive through a regional famine. Genesis 41:39-40. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders." From chains to the second highest seat of power in the ancient world. He did not get there by prayer alone. He got there because he applied 7 wealth laws. Faithfully, even when no one was watching, that most people, most believers have never been taught. These are those laws. Stay until the end of this video. The seventh law is the one most people already have in their possession right now, a gift they've been sitting on for years without realizing its value. It is the one most likely to change what you do this week. When you see it, you will recognize it immediately, because it has been with you the whole time. Right now, before we go any further, write this in the comments. Lord, open my eyes to the wealth you have already placed in my hands. Write it. That declaration is not decoration. It is a commitment. The act of writing it is the first step of faith. And what you plant in faith today, you will harvest in time. Wealth Law 1. The law of stewardship. You cannot be trusted with more until you master what you have. Biblical foundation Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. The Greek word translated here as trusted is pistos, which carries the meaning of faithful, reliable, proven, through consistent action over time. This is not about a single moment of integrity. It is about a pattern, a track record, a demonstrated relationship between you and whatever resources, however small, are currently in your hands. Most people treat this verse as a character instruction. It is far more than that. It is an economic principle. God will not expand what you have not honored. He will not multiply what you have not managed. Before the increase comes, the test of stewardship must be passed. Look at Joseph again. Before he governed Egypt, he governed Potiphar's household. Before he governed Potiphar's household, he was responsible for his father's flocks. At every stage, long before the promotion was visible, the stewardship was being tested. The prison did not interrupt his preparation. The prison was part of it. He administered even the prison with excellence, and the warden noticed. Genesis 39:22 records. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison. Every assignment Joseph received, he managed as if it were the most important thing in the world. It did not matter if others thought it was beneath him. He knew something they did not. Faithfulness in small things is the only audition that counts for large things. This principle is as alive today as it was in Egypt 4,000 years ago. The person who manages a $500 budget with precision is being prepared for a $500,000 budget. The person who treats their current employer's resources carelessly is disqualifying themselves from the resources that would come with ownership. Modern application. The first practical business model derived from this law is bookkeeping and financial organization services for small businesses. Most small business owners in your community are drowning in financial disorganization. They cannot read their own cash flow. They are missing tax deductions because their records are chaos. You do not need an accounting degree to begin. You need a spreadsheet, basic training available free on YouTube, and the willingness to bring order to disorder. Starting car, zero. $100 client per month. The second is household budget coaching. Millions of working families have income but no system. They know they are losing money somewhere, but cannot identify where. You interview them, map their spending, design a simple structure they can maintain, and follow up monthly. Completely digital. Serve clients from your kitchen table. Income range, $150 to $400 per session. The third is property management assistance for small landlords. Someone in your city owns 2 or 3 rental units and is overwhelmed. They do not want a full management company. They want a reliable person who handles the administrative layer. You can be that person. Income. Typically 8–10% of monthly rent collected. Real-world story. Marcus, from Memphis, Tennessee, was a warehouse supervisor earning $38,000 a year. He had no savings, 2 car payments, and a credit card balance that had not moved in 4 years. One Sunday he heard this principle and did one thing. He sat down that night and, for the first time in his adult life, wrote down every single dollar he spent in a month. Everything. What he found shocked him. $41 a week in convenience store stops he had never consciously noticed. A streaming subscription he forgot he had. A gym membership unused for 8 months. He recovered $380 per month without cutting anything meaningful. By month 7, he had $260 saved, the first savings account he had ever had. 6 months after that, he used that foundation to enroll in a weekend bookkeeping course. Last year, his side bookkeeping work generated $19,000. He did not find new income first. He proved himself faithful with what he already had. Then the increase followed. Limiting belief confrontation. I know exactly what you're thinking right now, but I barely have enough. How can I practice stewardship with almost nothing? That is precisely the point. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." The discipline of little by little is not a consolation prize for people who cannot afford big moves. It is the actual mechanism of wealth building. Every major accumulation of wealth in history, including every biblical one, began with the mastery of small. Start with what is in your hands, not what you wish was there. Write in the comments right now if this law exposed something in your own stewardship that you need to address. Wealth Law 2, the law of specialized knowledge. The world pays premium for expertise, and this principle is ancient. Proverbs 22:29. Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. The Hebrew word here is mahir, swift, expert, one who has developed mastery through dedicated repetition. This is not general competence. This is skill sharpened until it is visibly different from what everyone else offers. Solomon understood something about the economy of expertise that most people have missed entirely. When the Queen of Sheba came to visit him in 1 Kings 10, she did not come because he was powerful. She came because she had heard about his specific, unparalleled wisdom. She brought very great gifts, spices in great quantity, and precious stones. She paid to be in the presence of concentrated expertise. That is not metaphor. That is commerce. Solomon built an economic empire not primarily on land or military power, but on the reputation of his knowledge. Leaders came from every direction, bringing resources with them, because what he knew could not be found anywhere else. He packaged his wisdom into practical governance, architectural design, natural science, and business counsel, and the world paid for access to it. Bezalel demonstrates the same principle from a different angle. Exodus 31:3 records God's words. I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills. This man was anointed not for preaching, not for prophecy, but for craftsmanship, technical excellence, so refined that only he could execute what God had in mind for the tabernacle. His skill was sacred. His expertise was the instrument of divine purpose. God does not just use spiritual gifts. He works through technical mastery. Modern application. The first model is high-ticket skill monetization. If you have spent 5 or more years doing anything professionally, nursing, teaching, construction, cooking, IT support, logistics, you have expertise others will pay to access in shorter form. A nurse with a decade of experience can create a course on medication management for family caregivers. A construction foreman can offer weekend workshops on home renovation for homeowners. Income range: $500,000 per course or workshop. The second is consulting and advisory services. You do not need a credential after your name. You need demonstrated results. If you have cut your household food budget by 40%, that is a consulting service for young families. If you have navigated a difficult insurance claim, someone will pay for that guidance. Rate: $75 to $200 per hour. The third is specialized trade services positioned as premium. In every trade, plumbing, electrical, cabinetry, painting, there is a gap between the person who can do the work and the person who does it with exceptional communication and follow-through. The second person charges 30–50% more and has a waiting list. Real-world story: Diana, from Charlotte, North Carolina, worked for 11 years as a hospital billing specialist. She understood medical insurance coding, claim denials, and appeals processes better than most attorneys. She left that job when her second child was born. 2 years later, a neighbor mentioned their insurance had denied a $12,000 claim and they had no idea how to fight it. Diana helped them, pro bono, in a single afternoon. The claim was reversed within 3 weeks. Word spread. Within 6 months, she had 12 paying clients. In her first year working part-time from home, she recovered over $340,000 for clients and kept $28,000 in fees. She had given that expertise away for 11 years for a salary. The moment she treated it as capital, everything changed. Limiting belief confrontation. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. I'm not an expert in anything. I don't have special knowledge. How long have you been alive? How many years have you been working? How many problems have you solved, navigated, survived? You have been accumulating expertise your entire adult life. You have simply been calling it just my job. Proverbs 4:7 commands, get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. The expertise you have already built is yours. The question is not whether you have it. The question is whether you will stop giving it away and start offering it at its true value. Comment below. What skill have you been undervaluing? Wealth Law 3. The law of multiplying assets. Stop selling your hours. Start building things that work while you sleep. Matthew 25:14-30. The parable of the talents. A master leaves on a journey. He distributes capital according to each servant's ability, 5 talents to one, 2 to another, 1 to the last. He returns. The servant with 5 presents 10. The servant with 2 presents 4. The servant with 1 buried it in the ground. The master's response to the first 2. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Matthew 25:21. The master's response to the last. You wicked, lazy servant. Matthew 25:26. The Greek word for talent here is talenton, a unit of financial measure. Jesus is describing a capital allocation scenario with specific outcomes and specific consequences. The core principle is this: resources held idle are not safe, they are wasted. The servant who buried his talent believed he was being cautious. His master called him negligent. In the economy of the kingdom, inaction with resources is not neutrality, it is loss. The woman of Proverbs 31 understood this entirely. Proverbs 31:16 says, she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings she plants a vineyard. She evaluates, she purchases, she invests. Verse 18. She sees that her trading is profitable. Verse 24. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. This is not a woman with one income stream. This is a multi-asset operator, real estate, agriculture, manufacturing, retail, trade, all running simultaneously. She built things that worked without her constant presence. Modern application. The first model is rental income from underutilized space. Do you have a spare room, a garage, a driveway in a city? Every one of these is a dormant asset. Airbnb for rooms, Neighbor.com for storage space, Spot Hero for parking. People with a single unused room have generated $800, $500 per month without any capital investment beyond what they already own. You do not need to buy property. You need to look at what you already have with different eyes. The second is digital products. A PDF guide you write once and sell indefinitely. A template, a resume, a budget spreadsheet, a content calendar, built once and listed on Etsy or Gumroad. A short instructional video hosted on Teachable or Udemy. The creation cost is your time. Once built, these generate income without your ongoing presence. Income range $103,000 per month. The third is consistent small investments, compounded over time. Starting with $50 per week. The cost of 3 fast food meals, invested consistently over 15 years, produces significant growth through the power of compounding. The woman of Proverbs 31 did not wait until she had enough to invest. She invested from earnings and grew. The principle is the same. The platform is different. Wealth Law 4. The law of the network. Your relationships are a financial infrastructure built for multiplication. Ecclesiastes 4:9, 10, 12. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, 1 can help the other up. Though 1 may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Solomon, the wealthiest individual in the ancient world, did not build his empire alone. 1 Kings 5 records his partnership with Hiram, king of Tyre, an alliance that gave Solomon access to Lebanese cedar and skilled craftsmen he did not have. In exchange, Hiram received agricultural goods. This was not charity, it was strategic alliance, mutual benefit. Verse 7. Praise be to the Lord today, for he has given David a wise son to rule over this great nation. Even Solomon's business partnerships became testimonies. Lydia of Thyatira in Acts 16:14 demonstrates the same law from a commercial angle. She was a dealer in purple cloth, a luxury product, a premium market. What set her apart was not only her product, it was her network. She had relationships with the right buyers, in the right cities, at the right tier of society. Purple cloth was worn by royalty and the wealthy elite. You could not access that market without connections. Lydia had them. And when Paul arrived and she believed, she immediately opened her home, making her network available to the early church. Her relationships were a resource she had always possessed. She simply recognized their value. The first network-based business is referral and connector services. You know which contractor in your area is reliable, which accountant is fair, which mechanic will not overcharge. That knowledge, organized strategically, is a business. Build a vetted local directory. Charge businesses a small monthly listing fee and earn referral commissions. Income potential, $503,000 per month. The second is community-based group purchasing. If you organize 10 families to buy from the same supplier, meat, produce, cleaning products, everyone pays less and you negotiate a coordinator's fee. You are not selling. You are organizing. And organizers have always been compensated. The third is affiliate marketing through trust relationships. You have people who trust you, friends, church members, followers. That trust is a financial asset. When you recommend a product or service you genuinely use and believe in, and that recommendation is tracked through an affiliate link, you earn a commission. Zero inventory, zero startup capital. Income ranged $200,000 or plus per month depending on audience and product category. Patricia from Houston, Texas, was a Sunday school teacher and mother of 3. She was known in her church community as the person who always knew someone reliable. A pastor friend suggested she was sitting on a business. She built a WhatsApp group called Trusted Local and curated vetted service providers, people she had personally used or witnessed. She charged each service provider $50 per month for inclusion. Within 8 months, she had 42 paying service providers and over 600 community members using the group. Monthly income, $100. She never left her neighborhood. She never sold anything. She organized relationships that already existed. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. I'm not a networker. I'm introverted. I don't have powerful connections. Bose was not connected to royalty. He was a landowner who showed up at his own field, spoke to his workers with dignity, and created an environment of generosity. Ruth noticed. That generosity became the foundation of a legacy that led directly to the lineage of David. Your network does not need to be impressive. It needs to be genuine. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Start with 2 real relationships built on mutual benefit. The network grows from there. Wealth Law 5, the law of seed and harvest. A universal principle of planting and reaping that has been observed consistently throughout human history. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Genesis 8:22. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. God spoke this covenant over the earth after the flood, not as poetry, as a declaration of the governing pattern of all productive endeavor embedded into the structure of physical reality. Every farmer, every business owner, every investor in the history of civilization has operated within this framework, whether they knew the scripture or not. Isaac demonstrates this principle in conditions that should have made it impossible. Genesis 26:1. There is a famine in the land. The natural response is to stop planting, conserve resources, wait for better conditions. God directs Isaac differently. Verse 2. Stay in this land. I will be with you and will bless you. Verse 12. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. During a famine, 100-fold. He planted when everyone else was hoarding. He sowed the third is strategic generosity practiced as a consistent financial discipline. People who give consistently, tithing, sowing into causes they believe in, generous tipping, paying it forward for others, often find themselves in situations where unexpected financial opportunities arise, demonstrating the profound and observed impact of this principle. Luke 6:38. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over, will be poured into your lap. This is a pattern reported by givers across cultures and centuries. It is not superstition. It is one of the most ancient observed dynamics of generosity and reciprocity. Carolyn, from Nashville, Tennessee, started selling homemade herb-infused olive oils at her church's annual fair. She spent $60 on bottles, herbs, and oil. She sold $190 of product in 4 hours. She reinvested the profit in the next batch, twice the quantity. She found a farmer's market with a $25 setup fee. Within 4 months, she was clearing $400, $600 every Saturday. She approached 3 local restaurants about a weekly wholesale order. 2 said yes. By the end of year 1, she had generated $23,000 from an initial $60 seed. She did not change her seed. She planted it faithfully, reinvested every harvest, and applied the law of multiplication consistently. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. I've tried things before and they didn't work. I planted and nothing grew. Every farmer has lost crops. No harvest is guaranteed in a single season. But no farmer concludes that planting is a lie because one season was hard. They evaluate the soil. They check the seed quality. They adjust. And they plant again. Ecclesiastes 11:4 warns, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." Stop watching for perfect conditions. They will not come. Plant in the conditions you have. The principle is not seasonal. It is consistent. Wealth Law 6, the law of excellence. Mediocrity is a financial decision, and most people are making it without realizing it. Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Daniel 6:3. Now Daniel so distinguished among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. The word translated exceptional qualities in the original Aramaic is yadir ruach, an extraordinary spirit, a surpassing quality of mind and character that was visibly different from everyone around him. Daniel was a captive. He was not in his home country. He had no family connections, no political allies, no inherited advantage. He was, by definition, a displaced person in a foreign system. And yet he rose to the top of that system, not because of favor alone, because of a standard of work that made him impossible to ignore, impossible to dismiss, and impossible to replace. When his enemies tried to bring charges against him in Daniel 6:4, they could find nothing, because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Trustworthy, not corrupt, not negligent. 3 economic virtues that are increasingly rare and therefore increasingly valuable. In every industry, in every market, in every generation, the person who does the work with an extraordinary spirit rises, because excellence creates a category of one, and there is no competition in a category of one. The first business built on this law is premium service positioning in any commodity field. House cleaning, lawn care, food delivery, mobile car detailing, all commodity services where most providers are interchangeable. A single operator who is unfailingly on time, communicates proactively, goes slightly beyond what was asked, and follows up afterward becomes the default recommendation in their network within 6 months. They charge 25–40% more than competitors and have a waiting list. The second is quality differentiation in handmade or food products. The difference between a $4 candle and a $20 candle is not the wax. It is the presentation, the consistency, the packaging, the customer experience. The same product at a higher standard commands a fundamentally different price point. Excellence is not just a character virtue. It is a pricing strategy. The third is professional reputation management. Your name is a business asset. Every interaction, online or offline, either builds or erodes it. Investing deliberately in your professional reputation. Asking for reviews. Maintaining a professional social media presence. Delivering on promises consistently. This compounds over time into opportunities that money cannot directly purchase. Samuel, from Birmingham, Alabama, was a house painter earning $18 per hour for a contractor. He went independent with one strategy. He took before and after photos of every room, sent a handwritten thank you note to every client, and called 3 weeks later to ask how everything looked. Within 5 months, he had more work than he could handle. He raised his rate to $35, then hired a helper and raised it again to $55. His clients did not shop price. They waited for him. 3 years later, Samuel's painting company bills $15,000 per month. He did not find a new business. He applied an extraordinary spirit to the one he already had. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. The market doesn't reward excellence. People just go with whoever is cheapest. Some do. The wrong clients always will. But Proverbs 22:29 is not a suggestion. The skilled person will stand before kings, not before low-ranking officials. The market for excellence is smaller than the market for cheap, and that is precisely why it is more valuable. You do not need everyone. You need the people who recognize what you offer. Go find them by being impossible to ignore. Wealth Law 7, the law of what is in your hand. The instrument of your breakthrough is already with you. Exodus 4:2. Then the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" "A staff," he replied. Moses was 80 years old. He had spent 40 years in the wilderness after 40 years in Egypt. He had no credentials, no army, no treasury, no political connections. He had a speech impediment. He was standing in front of a burning bush on the backside of the desert, and God had just told him he was going to deliver an entire nation from the most powerful empire in the world. His response was completely logical. Who am I? Exodus 3:11. What if they don't believe me? Exodus 4:1. I have never been eloquent. Exodus 4:10. God did not answer any of those objections directly. He asked one question. What is that in your hand? A staff. A shepherd's staff. A piece of wood. An ordinary tool that Moses had carried every day for 40 years as he tended sheep. Nothing impressive. Nothing special. Nothing that any observer would have identified as the instrument of national liberation and supernatural miracles. With that staff, God opened the Red Sea. This is the seventh law, and it is the most personal, the most immediate, the most accessible of all seven. You have been waiting for a resource you do not have. God has been pointing to one you do. What is in your hand right now? The first application is the simplest. Take inventory of what you currently have before seeking what you lack. Write down every skill you have demonstrated, every tool you own, every room or space you have access to, every relationship of trust you hold, every hour per week you have not yet allocated. This inventory is the first act of faith. It is the act of picking up the staff and looking at it honestly instead of insisting it is not enough. The second is low-barrier service businesses, built entirely on existing skills and equipment. A person with a truck and a weekend can start a moving assistance business today. Post on Facebook Marketplace. Help with small moves and furniture delivery, $75 for the first hour, $50 each additional. 3 calls in a weekend, $25 to $400. A person who bakes well can take 5 custom cake orders per week from Instagram with zero cost beyond ingredients. A person with a good phone camera can offer headshot mini sessions to professionals on LinkedIn for $75 per person. The third, and the one I want you to sit with, is the thing you do so naturally that you have never thought to charge for it. You answer the same question for people constantly. You help people solve the same type of problem. People come to you with the same need, and you help them, and they thank you and move on. And you have never once considered that what you just did was worth money. It is. Identify that thing. It is the staff. It has been in your hand the whole time. Tanya, from Detroit, Michigan, was a licensed practical nurse who worked the night shift at a care facility. Her younger sister was going through a complicated pregnancy and could not navigate the healthcare system. Tanya spent hours on the phone, translating medical terminology, asking the right questions, advocating in appointments. The doctors noticed her. Her sister said, "You should do this for people. Nobody knows how to do this." Tanya started a healthcare navigation and patient advocacy side service. She charged $150 for an initial consultation and $100 per hour for appointment accompaniment and phone advocacy. In her first month, 2 families from her church hired her. In month 4, a local community health organization contracted her for a $400 monthly retainer to assist uninsured patients. She had been doing this work her whole career, for free for her family. All she did was look at what was already in her hand. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. What I have is too ordinary, too common, too basic to build anything with. Moses thought it was just a staff. He had carried it for 40 years and never once imagined it would open a sea. The extraordinary is not in the instrument. It has never been in the instrument. It is in what you do with it and whose direction you follow when you move. John 6:9, a boy's lunch, 5 loaves, 2 fish. Handed to Jesus. Fed 5,000. The disciples asked, "How far will they go among so many?" That is the wrong question. The right question is, what will you do with what is already in your hand? Identify it. Pick it up. Take the first step. Come back to where we started. You woke up tired. The bills didn't stop. The ceiling didn't move. You prayed and the finances did not change. And for a long time, you believed the problem was you, your faith, your effort, your worthiness. That was the lie, not a loud lie, a quiet one. The kind that arrives dressed as humility and disguised as realism. It whispered that your situation was fixed, that the gap between your faith and your finances was simply the way things were for people like you. Now you have seen 7 laws that God embedded in His Word, patterns that have governed financial outcomes throughout all of human history, long before any bank existed, before any business school opened its doors, before any self-help guru sold a single book. The law of stewardship: honor what you have and more will be entrusted to you. The law of specialized knowledge: the expertise you have built over years is capital, not just a resume entry. The law of multiplying assets: build things that work while you sleep, because your hours alone will never be enough. The law of the network: your relationships are a financial infrastructure designed for multiplication. The law of seed and harvest: what is planted with diligence and consistency produces a return greater than the seed. The law of excellence: an extraordinary spirit applied to ordinary work creates an extraordinary outcome. And the 7th, the law of what is in your hand: the instrument of your breakthrough is already with you. The greatest lie is that you have nothing to start with. It is the most effective lie ever told. It has kept more people paralyzed than any circumstance or obstacle ever has. And it works because it arrives quietly, dressed as prudence, whispering, "Wait until you have more." Moses had a staff. Joseph had 40 years of preparation he didn't know he was receiving. Tanya had knowledge she had always given away for free. Marcus had a leaky budget he had never actually looked at. Diana had 11 years of expertise she had never thought to package. What is in your hand today? A skill you have had for years and never charged for. A room in your house you have never thought of as an asset. Knowledge that feels obvious to you, but would change everything for someone just beginning. A relationship of trust you have never recognized as a network. Whatever it is, do not underestimate it. In the right hands, with the willingness to take the first step, anything can become the beginning of a legacy. Your family's history can change starting from this moment. Not from the moment you have more, from this moment. With what is in your hand right now, share this video right now with the person you already have in mind. You know who it is. That friend who is working 2 jobs and still behind. That sibling who prays every morning and worries about bills every night. That brother or sister in faith who has been told by life that their situation is permanent. One share from you could change the direction of someone else's entire life. That is not an exaggeration. It is exactly what you would want someone to do for you, your Father. I come before you right now on behalf of every person who stayed until this moment. You know exactly where they are. You know the names of the debts that have been stealing their sleep. You know the number of times they have calculated the same impossible math and come up short. You know the business ideas they have had and buried because fear spoke louder than faith. You know the years they spent developing skills they gave away for free, not realizing those skills were the staff you were pointing to all along. Lord, I ask you today to do what only you can do. Where stewardship has been neglected, not from laziness, but from hopelessness, restore the desire to manage well. Let the person who heard this message sit down tonight and take their first honest inventory. Let order come into finances that have been disordered for years. where specialized knowledge has been undervalued, where someone spent a decade becoming excellent at something and has never been paid what it is worth. Open doors. Let the right client appear. Let the right conversation happen. Let the expertise locked inside a salary be released into ownership. Where assets exist but have not been activated, the spare room, the unused skill, the digital product still in someone's head, remove the paralysis of analysis. Remove the wait until it's perfect that has delayed what should have started already. Let this week be the week the first step is taken. Where networks exist but have not been seen as resources, let eyes open. Let connections that felt casual be recognized as the strategic alliances you designed them to be. Let partnerships form. Let introductions happen. Let what has been assembled in relationship be activated in purposeful work. Where seeds have been withheld because previous efforts did not produce, heal the discouragement. Let courage rise. Let Ecclesiastes 11:6 become their daily posture. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle. Let them plant again, consistently, faithfully. And let the harvest that is built through diligence and application be the one that begins to change things where excellence has been suppressed by low expectations, by environments that rewarded mediocrity, by voices that said, good enough is fine. Let an extraordinary spirit rise. The spirit you gave Bezalel, the spirit that distinguished Daniel. Let that spirit be poured fresh today on every hand that is willing to work with all its heart. And Lord, the seventh law, for every person who has been staring at what they lack instead of what they hold, open their eyes right now. What is in their hand? Show them, specifically, clearly. Show them the instrument they have been carrying for years without recognizing. Then let them pick it up. Let them stop waiting for the resources that are coming and start working with the ones already here. Bless the service businesses launched from spare rooms and kitchen tables. Bless the knowledge packaged and offered at its true value. Bless the seeds planted in difficult seasons. Bless the networks activated in genuine relationship. Bless the ordinary things used with extraordinary dedication. For the children who are watching their parents take the first step, let them see. Let this be what they inherit, not just income, but the knowledge of how to generate it. Not just provision, but the principles that produce it. This is the covenant. Deuteronomy 8:18. It is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. You gave the ability. Now they are moving toward it. In Jesus' name. Amen. Write this in the comments right now. I have everything I need to begin. Lord, activate what is already in my hands. The Lord's favor brings prosperity, which is found through diligent and purposeful work, not through arduous and fruitless labor. Inspired by Proverbs 10:22, I'll see you in the next video.